웨비나가 곧 시작됩니다. 전화를 끊지 마십시오. 웨비나가 곧 시작됩니다. 전화를 끊지 마십시오. 웨비나가 곧 시작됩니다. 전화를 끊지 마십시오. 이제 브로드캐스트가 시작됩니다. 모든 참석자가 듣기 전용 모드였습니다.
Everyone, welcome to the Eurostars webinar for Call 10 for applicants. I hope that you can all see and hear me. You can send a reaction. Okay. I can see that some people are still joining, but I'll already begin with some practical information. So I'll introduce myself. My name is Michaela Mayer from the Eureka Secretariat, and I'm here with my colleague Alan Crinny, as well as Jessica Rebens, answering your questions in the chat. And together we're going to present to you an overview of the Eurostars program, the application form and the application platform, to give you an introduction and also some useful advice and recommendations for when you're filling in your application and to help you with the process. Just to inform you, this webinar is being recorded, so you will receive a link to the recording once the webinar ends. It comes automatically, so you'll be able to access that at any time, and then you can re-watch any part of the webinar that you need to at a later stage. Practically, this webinar is going to last around 1 hour to 1 hour and 15 minutes. The structure will be a presentation first by us that lasts around 45 to 50 minutes, and then we will have a Q&A session at the end of the webinar. So if you have any questions during the presentation, you can pop those in the chat. We'll look at them once we finish presenting, and then we will choose as many of them as possible to answer at the end. If your question doesn't get answered during the webinar, we will look at the questions in the coming days, and we will try to answer as many of those in the coming days as possible. So you should receive a reply, if not during the webinar, hopefully in the coming days from us. If you do not receive a response to your question in the coming days, if it's been over a week, then send us another message on our email. So with that, I will begin the presentation. So let's have a look at the topics that will be covered during this webinar. This includes the submission dates, so when you can apply until. We'll give you an introduction to what Eurostars is, who can participate in Eurostars, what are our eligibility criteria, how funding works in Eurostars, and how the legal and financial viability check works. We will then move on to a short overview of the evaluation process and how you will get your results. And we'll also give you a look at the application form, how it looks, some advice and recommendations, and then Alon will show you the submission platform where you will need to submit your application. In this webinar, there are some things that are not covered that you'll need to seek out for yourself. We do not cover specific national funding body rules and procedures. These vary from country to country, and so you will need to contact your national funding bodies, and this can be done via our contact form on our website. And you can also check our Eurostars call page on the website for some detailed information about each country. Similarly, we also do not cover various intellectual property rules. This can also vary by region. So for information on IP, contact the IP SME Help Desk, or you can attend their upcoming webinar on general EU IP in February. We do not go into detail about how to write a good Eurostars proposal and what exactly experts are looking for from your proposal. There are separate webinars held on this, such as the one next week on the 26th of January at 10 a.m., which can include some hints from our independent experts about what they're looking for from proposals and what they think makes a good proposal. I will provide and we will provide links to these webinars at the end of this presentation, but you can also find them already if you want to register on our website or on the call page. Probably the most important information to you is when to apply. So the call is already open. It opened last week, Friday. You can already go to the platform now and start your application. Altogether, there is 2 months that the platform is open, so you have 2 months to apply until the 19th of March 2026 at 2 p.m. Brussels time. It is very important that you take note here that the cutoff day, the 19th of March, you do not have all day. The cutoff is at 2 p.m. So please use your time in these 2 months to prepare your application as early as possible and to contact your national funding body and to contact us if you need to, as after this deadline of 2 p.m. on the 19th of March 2026, we cannot accept any more applications. Let's move on to the Eurostars program, especially for those of you who have not participated before. Eurostars is part of the European Partnership on Innovative SMEs. The partnership is co-funded by 37 Eureka countries and the EU through Horizon Europe. And each year there's around 250 million euro in public-private investment, and that supports around 680 organizations. Eurostars projects are collaborative and international with at least 2 partners from 2 different countries. They can be in any technological or market area, but they must be market driven. The goal is to develop something that can be commercialized quickly, or in the case of biotechnology, biomedical, or medical projects, that clinical trials must start rapidly after the end of the project. While biological sciences, electronics, IT, and telecoms are some of our most popular fields, we are a bottom-up program, so we welcome anything from agri-food, marine resources, and projects that might not even fit into any of these technological areas. On average, a typical Eurostars project has 3 to 4 participants from 2 to 3 countries. It lasts about 30 months and has an average budget of 1.4 million. So let's look at who can participate in Eurostars. Organizations from all Eurostars countries can participate. You can see here the list of Eurostars countries. These organizations can receive public funding, and then all types of organizations are welcome. Obviously, the leading SME and other SMEs, large companies, universities, research institutes, and more. Even organizations outside of Eurostars countries can join, but for these organizations, they can only join on a self-funding basis as they cannot receive public funding. So these organizations have to make sure that they're able to cover their project expenses for themselves. On this, you can find more information on our website or in our eligibility guidelines. We also urge you at this stage to contact your national funding body in your country so that you can find out if there are any specific national rules regarding your organization or organization type. Since we are talking about the eligibility guidelines, let's move on to our eligibility criteria. So Eurostars imposes 7 eligibility criteria, and all 7 are equally important, and your project must fulfill all 7 to be considered eligible and to participate in the program. The eligibility check is the first step that happens right after you submit, and only eligible applications move on to the next stages of the evaluation. So it's important that you check that your application fulfills all 7 of these criteria. So I'll go through them now one by one. Our first criteria is that your project must be led by an innovative SME from a Eurostars country. So this has various components. To be an innovative SME, you must comply with the SME definition as laid out in the EU Recommendation 361. The EU recommendation gives various ceilings on staff headcount, for example, less than 250 people, annual turnover, which must be less than 50 million, and or balance sheet total, which has to be less than 43 million to be considered an SME. You can see these ceilings here, but we recommend that you also review the EU recommendation to make sure you understand it and you know what you need to be to comply with this definition. Keep in mind as well that if your organization is linked with a larger group, then you may have to include the staff headcount, turnover, and balance sheets total from the bigger group in your definition. We also recommend that you check our user guide available on our website in our resource library to the SME definition, as this also has some examples and a detailed explanation on how you will calculate these ceilings. Secondly, you're considered innovative if your SME has the ambition to collaborate on R&D and innovation with international partners to develop an innovation that can be rapidly commercialized. So to be considered innovative in Eurostars, an SME doesn't necessarily need to have a proven track record of R&D activities, but what is important in our program is that you have the ambition to be innovative. This leading SME needs to be from a Eurostars country, which you saw earlier, the list of Eurostars countries. So the second eligibility criteria is that your consortium needs to include at least 2 independent entities. To understand if your organization is considered independent or not, please check our eligibility guidelines again, where we outline what is direct or indirect control. If you still have questions on your organization's independence, then please contact us. Then thirdly, the project consortium needs to involve organizations from at least 2 Eurostars countries, which was part of the list that you saw earlier, and at least one of these needs to be from an EU or Horizon Europe associated country. All Eurostars countries are EU members or associated to Horizon Europe, except for Canada, Republic of Korea, Singapore, and South Africa. So please pay particular attention if you or your partner is an organization from one of these countries to make sure that you meet this eligibility criteria. The next 2 criteria that we're going to discuss is to do with the budget of the consortium. So firstly, the budget of the SMEs from the Eurostars countries must be at least 50% of the overall budget of the project. If there is one SME in your consortium from a Eurostars country, if you exclude their subcontracting from the budget, this should be at least 50% of the overall project budget. If there are multiple SMEs from Eurostars countries in your consortium, then their budgets altogether, excluding their subcontracting, needs to be 50% of the overall project budget. Please pay attention when you are doing this calculation that the overall project budget subcontracting is not removed and only the subcontracting from the SMEs from Eurostars countries is removed. And also, we do not round this number, so make sure that you're not rounding when you're doing this calculation of 50%. Again, you can find the calculation with some examples in our eligibility guidelines, and then you can also contact us if you are unsure of how to do this calculation. On this, lastly, please note that subcontracting amongst partners is not allowed, and this is a rule for all partners, regardless of type of organization. The next budget-related eligibility criteria is that no single participant or country can be responsible for more than 70% of the total project budget. In this calculation, subcontracting is included. So please pay attention to the difference between the two calculations. The 50% one where the subcontracting is removed and the 70% one where subcontracting remains included. Then the last two criteria are that the project duration needs to be 36 months or less, and finally, that the project has an exclusively civilian purpose. So this doesn't rule out the participation of military partners or development of what we call dual use technologies, but the project itself needs to have a clear focus on civilian applications. Um, One tip from our side, most projects fail, as you can see here, most projects fail on criteria 4 or 5, so please check your budget split between the partners, and also make sure that you have a minimum of 2 Eurostars countries involved. Another tip on eligibility is that there is an eligibility tracker on the application platform. However, this um, checker only works if all the partners in the consortium have entered and marked their financial section as complete. So if one of your partners hasn't marked this section as complete, the tracker doesn't take it into account, and so you might see a result that doesn't make sense. So we always recommend that you also double check your budget calculations manually. Lastly, we wanted to highlight that your question, number 13 answer on civilian purpose, is used to check the eligibility of your application. So please make sure that you make this answer correct. Otherwise, your project will be deemed ineligible. So even if your project does have an exclusive focus on civilian application, if you mark this question wrong and submit it, then you will be deemed ineligible. And because you are not able to make any edits to your application after the submission deadline, you will be deemed ineligible. It's important also to note that your project application must comply with all 7 eligibility criteria from when you submit until you sign your consortium agreement, which can be around 5 to 6 months after submission. If during the evaluation process there are any changes to your consortium or to your project, you need to inform us of any new information, as then we need to recheck your eligibility to make sure that you are still eligible to participate in Eurostars. Let's move on now to funding. So who can receive Eurostars funding? As I mentioned, organizations that are based in Eurostars countries can receive Eurostars funding, while organizations that are not based in Eurostars countries can participate, but they are not eligible to receive public funding, so they will have to self-fund their entire contribution. For this, they will also need to provide a self-funding declaration at the time of the application, and the template for this can also be found on our website in our resources tab. Looking at the Eurostars countries, it's important to note that funding in Eurostars is decentralized. So this means that the organizations don't receive funding directly from us, but rather from their own national funding body. These national funding bodies all have independent rules about what types of organizations can be funded, which activities can be funded, and what the funding rates and thresholds are. Since these rules vary country to country, it is important that each of you in your consortium contact your respective national funding bodies to understand the situation of your organization and check at a national level what activities can be funded and what the funding rates and thresholds in your country are. Eurostars will Eurostars funding will not cover all of the project costs, so the consortium must be able to fund the remaining costs themselves. At the same time, check that your country has funding available for this call. For example, for call 10, there is no funding available for organizations based in Cyprus, Greece, Israel, and Romania. And in Italy, there is only funding available through one of the two NFBs, and that is through MER. So please keep this in mind and make sure that you are in contact with your national funding body to check your national funding body rules when you create your application. Moving on to the evaluation process, I want to highlight one of the key steps of the evaluation, which is the legal and financial viability check. This check is also done at a national level and by your national funding bodies. The national funding body checks each organization that applies and passes the eligibility check that comes from their country. This means that each organization in your consortium will be checked at their various respective national levels. If any of the organizations in a consortium do not pass the legal and financial viability check, then the whole consortium and the application is rejected. This is why we stress that the importance of each partner checking their national funding body rules and to check that they're eligible in their own countries. Because if even just one partner fails the legal and financial viability check, then the whole application is rejected. During this check, the national funding bodies verify the following: that the organization has provided a valid commitment and signature form. So the commitment and signature form is a mandatory part of the application, and it's a legal document that each organization in the consortium needs to provide. Since it's a legal document, it's important that an authorized legal representative of the organization is the one who signs this document. So please make sure that you start working early enough in the process so that you can get this signature ahead of the submission deadline. Next, that the organization or organizations who have declared themselves as SMEs are checked to make sure that they comply with the EU definition of what an SME is. This is also verified at a national level during the legal and financial viability check. They also check that the organization is in fact a legal entity in that country that they're claiming to be from, and that the organization has not been convicted of fraudulent behavior. And if the organization is located in the European Union or the European Economic Area, that it is not undertaking difficulty based on the EU regulation of 651 from 2014. Or if it is located elsewhere, that it is not in a difficult financial situation, rendering it ineligible for funding according to national rules. Again, it is important here that you are aware of this Commission regulation and what it means to be undertaking in difficulty so that this will not be a problem that you will run into during the legal and financial viability check. During this check, your NFB will also verify that the organization is compliant with all the national rules that we discussed to receive Eurostar's public funding. So again, it's important that you check with your national funding body and you are aware of the national rules. In the case that the organization is not compliant with national rules, the NFB will inform the organization and that while they can still participate in the project, they will have to then self-fund their part and commit to this via a self-funding declaration submitted at the time of the legal and financial viability check. Finally, during this check, your NFB also verifies that the organization does have the financial capacity to support their part of the project costs. As I mentioned before, Eurostars will not fund all of the project costs, so you will need to have everything in place to show that you and your partners are able to fund your parts of the project costs. The assessment of your financial capacity is based on national criteria established by each NFB. So to make sure you have all the information and the correct documents already in place that could be needed by your NFB to check your financial capacity, you need to contact your national funding body to find out what information they require. Now let's take a look at the overview of the evaluation process in Eurostars. This lasts approximately 3 months. So after the application deadline, the first step, as we've just discussed, is the eligibility check, when all applications are checked to see whether they fill the 7 Eurostars eligibility criteria or not. And the results of this check are shared within 1 week of the application deadline. Then all eligible applications progress to the next step, which is the legal and financial viability check that we also just discussed. And at the same time, there is the remote evaluation, which runs in parallel. During the remote evaluation, 3 remote experts individually assess each application using their technical and market expertise, and they will produce 3 separate and individual assessments of the application. The applications that pass both the remote evaluation and the legal and financial check, and then are within the top 200 rated applications, will then progress to these next stages. The results of the legal and financial and the evaluation will be shared by the end of April 2026. The next stage is another 2 steps running in parallel. This is the ethics review, where a panel of independent ethics experts assess the ethical considerations of your application and give an ethics opinion of your project, while at the same time, the independent evaluation panel, a panel of scientific experts, compares the quality of the applications that have made it to the top 200, and they establish a ranking list. After this step, you will receive the results, should be by mid-June, and you will be notified in July whether your project is approved for funding or not. If your application is approved for funding, then you can begin working on your consortium agreement, which you need to submit within 6 weeks from the time you receive your funding results. Once the consortium agreement is submitted, you will be able to start the project on the date that was agreed upon in the consortium agreement. As I mentioned, after each evaluation step, you will receive a communication from us with your results from that step. After this is communicated to you, you have the possibility to submit a redress request. However, it is important to remember that redress requests can only be based on a procedural ground. So please make sure if you are submitting a redress request that you are submitting it based on a legitimate procedural ground. For example, that the results of the eligibility check was wrong, or that there was a mistake in how the legal and financial viability check was performed. But for example, if you disagree with the opinion of the remote experts who are assessing the application, this does not constitute a procedural ground for redress. Check our redress request guidelines and make sure you send the redress request by registered mail and that you have informed us via email at applications@eurostars-eureka.eu of your intent to send, as well as including a PDF version of the redress request so that we can begin processing it as soon as possible, but make sure that you also submit it by registered mail. Just another note on the reader's requests, there is a character limit of 5,000 words, and this includes spaces. For a legitimate procedural error, you should be able to explain this within 5,000 words. And in the case that your reader's request exceeds this limit, only the first 5,000 characters will be taken into consideration. Moving on to the application form. The application form has 5 sections in total, including a partner-specific section. My colleague later will show you these on the platform. The application form also has 2 mandatory annexes, the SME declaration, which is mandatory for all SMEs in the consortium, and the commitment and signature form, which is mandatory for all organizations in the consortium, not just SMEs. There is also a possibility to upload optional annexes, such as a Gantt chart or a technical annex, which has a limit of up to 10 pages. These are documents to help you give the expert evaluators some more information about your project and to help them support your understanding of the project. However, please make sure that all the core information is covered in your application form, and use the technical annex only to provide visual representation, for example, a graph or a use case. Also take note here that there is a maximum page limit and size limit to these annexes, so you'll not be able to upload larger documents. The application also includes an ethics self-assessment. As we mentioned, there is an ethics review during the evaluation process. So this is when your ethics compliancy is evaluated. The ethics self-assessment consists of 2 parts. So firstly, you respond to question 14 of the application form, which is, are there any legal or ethical issues linked to the objective, methodology, and impact of your project? And this is where you will explain how you plan to address any ethics issues that you have identified. And at the same time, you need to upload an ethics issues table, which has a list of the 12 ethics categories, and you will indicate there whether each issue is raised in your proposal or not, and then if it is raised, where it's raised, and how you plan to overcome it. A template for the commitment and signature form, the SME declaration, and the ethics table can be found on our website or in the application platform when you are filling in these sections. The application form also includes questions on SDG related impact and also on the integration of gender and dimension, the gender dimension into your scientific method. So I wanted to highlight some of these so that you can Familiarize yourself with some of these resources to help you understand what is expected in these sections. We find that often applicants are not sure exactly what to write in the Sustainable Development Goals section or in the gender dimension section. I wanted to highlight specifically the gender dimension because this is something that we've received feedback from the experts. They say that in many applications, they find that this section is overlooked. So please make sure that you are integrating the sex, gender, and intersectional analysis into your scientific method and that you are describing this in this part of your application form. Include how the gender dimension is integrated at different stages of your method. And this basically goes beyond the genders of the colleagues working on the project, but rather the method overall and how it's integrated. If you consider that this is not relevant for the R&I content of your research proposal, then you need to clearly explain why. If you need more information on this, we would guide you to refer to the Gendered Innovations 2 report, which I've linked here, or the Gendered Innovations website to see general methods as well as field-specific methods with case study examples on how to integrate this gender dimension. Then, a little bit more on ethics. We have our own guidelines, the Ethics Self-Assessment Guidelines and the Eurostars Ethics Appraisal Process Guidelines, which can be found on our website in our Eurostars resource library, along with the ethics issues table that you need to fill in anyways and attach to your application form. I would highlight here that if your project involves AI, the use or development of AI, please also read the EU AI Act, which came into full force since last year. So under the question of AI, please fully explain the AI flow of your project and how you plan to deal with and protect personal data during your project. Further, I would also like to highlight that the International Intellectual Property SME Help Desk is a European Commission first line IP assistance service, which is available for SMEs from the EU and SMP associated countries that operate or intend to access target regions, markets, and to look to improve their global competitiveness. All services by the help desk are provided free of charge. So if this is relevant for you, then you may want to begin reaching out to the help desk for more information, as being able to describe your IPR strategy is part of the application form under quality and efficiency question 12. The IPR SME Help Desk holds trainings, webinars, events, and they're available for one-on-one assistance via helplines such as on their email. They have a phone and they can set up virtual meetings with you to discuss this as well. Again, I'll highlight that they are hosting a webinar on the 6th of February to introduce IP to SMEs in the EU and SMP associated countries, which could be interesting for some of you to attend. Another recommendation we have received from experts is for applicants to explain what a use case is and to encourage the creation of use cases by applicants where relevant. So this is not a mandatory part of the application, but a use case helps experts understand the process flow of your service or device. Use cases define your project scope requirements and it gives a roadmap. If this could work with your project, it can be included in the business case section or in the technical annex. If you are creating a use case, in it you should describe the main processes involved using your product or service as envisioned by an operational end user. Include who or what performs each step, where it takes place, and how these steps lead to the final outcome. Focus on the workflow and the interactions, and overall, an inclusion of a use case could be a key inclusion to help an expert evaluator to get a clearer picture of user interactions and what a successful interaction looks like. Lastly, the participation identification code is a 9-digit unique identification number and it's mandatory field of the registration form for all partner organizations in the consortium. So without a PIC number, you will not be able to complete the registration and therefore you cannot start, join, or submit a Eurostars application. We have links here for the guidelines and instructions on how to obtain or retrieve a PIC number through the European Commission's Funding and Tenders portal. Again, as this is something that can take a little bit of time, please make sure that you allow yourself sufficient amount of time to obtain a PIC number for your organization before registering and submitting your application form. Lastly, from my side, we have included here our main recommendations. So if you prefer to work offline, we do have a Word version of the application that you can find on our website in our resource library. However, just to note, you can only apply by submitting the online application form, which you must complete on our Eureka project management platform that my colleague will discuss in a minute. So it can be helpful for you to work off of line, but just make sure that you leave enough time to familiarize yourself with the platform and to copy and paste all the information onto the platform. We really recommend that you work on your online application beginning at an early stage, so don't wait for just a few days before the submission deadline. Allow yourself time to get to know the platform, to take the processes of inviting partners, which can take some time, and to get any signatures you need, for example, for the SME declaration or the commitment and signature form, that you have these well ahead of the submission deadline. Further, we are here to help you this whole time during any stage of the process, um, as well as your national project coordinators. But please allow enough time for response, especially if you are having a technical issue that might require some assistance from IT. Now, that's what I have for you. I will hand over to my colleague who will guide you through how to use the platform when you are submitting your application. Thank you.
Yes, so I think we are ready. We can now start with sharing the slides. Okay. Okay, thank you, Michaela. So you got now all the information on the program, but actually how to do so, we are going to present you in a second. So I'm not going to move forward to how to explain you the platform and how you will work on and submit your application. So moving into the platform itself, you can reach the platform at www.myeurekaproject.org. Please note that you are only able to submit one application per project on EPMP, submitted by the main partner. Once you access the platform, and we can see it in the next slide, you will see this page. You will have to click on competition listing link under I want to create a new application. This is how you will see the upcoming call. So from the call, you can choose call 10 from the list of the upcoming ones. After you have chosen your call, then you click on start a new application, and this is the way to start your application on the platform. Since the call is open since last Friday, you're able to click on start a new application button. First, you will have to log in if you already have an account or to create an account in case you didn't have one before. If you already have an account, you can sign in by entering your email address. The platform will send you a verification code to the email address you registered with. You will have to enter this code into the platform. Please check carefully your spam or junk email folders in order to be able to retrieve this code and this email. If the code has expired and it happened after 15 minutes from the request, please request a new one. When you start your application, it is very important that the leading SME registers first. It is the only leading SME that can start an application. After the application has started, then the other partners must be invited by the leading SME. So when you choose your organization type and you are an SME, you need to tick Innovative SME. When the leading partner wishes to invite project partners, they can do this in the application team section under the application overview. So they click on application team, and then they will be able to invite the partners. If you click on the application team section, this is what you're going to see. You will be able to access two buttons, one to add a partner organization and another option for you to add a person to a participating organization. For both, the person invited will receive an email inviting them to register to the platform or to join the application and logging in the platform in case you already had an account with that email address. Anyone from any of the organization can add a new person to the organization. Please note when you provide the correct, when you provide the organization details to provide the correct ones. So please pay attention to the organization name, the VAT number, the registration number, the PIC number, that they actually have to be correct. The option to add a person from the main partner and the other partner is actually useful because the application is collaborative. As Michaela said, you can actually work on your application with your partners. So different partner organization and several people from this organization can work together on the application form at the same time. However, as I mentioned before, it is the main partner who needs to assign specific question or section to the other partners or the other organization. As by default, all of them are assigned to the main partner, which after can assign to the other partners. This is one part of the application that cannot be completed by the main partner, and it is the project finances section, which is partner specific. So each partner must complete this for themselves, your project finances, which I will talk about again shortly. For each question on the platform, you will notice that there are tips on how to answer each question. One tip from us is that we recommend you keep a copy of the guidelines on how to complete an application next to you to refer to, as they contain further information and instructions on how to do so. Please keep an eye out on the word count that you see on the right side. As there is a word limit in each section, you can see this on the bottom of the text box. Keep in mind that some special character can confuse the word count because it does not display correctly. So we would strongly encourage you to not to use special characters, and in case you use so, be mindful of the word limit. When you're answering a question in a section, you will see two buttons, the green Save and Return to the Application Overview, and the Mark as Complete button. If you're still working on the answer on a specific section, then you need to click on Save and Return the Application Overview button. That section will still display as incomplete on your application overview page, but the information you have entered have been already saved. You can go back and edit anytime before you submit your application. If you click, on the contrary, on Mark as Complete, the section will display as complete. Before submitting your application, all the section will have to be marked as complete. But don't worry, if you realize that you need to change something after you have marked it as complete, before submitting the application, you can click on the section and edit the content of that section. Another one of the main parts of the application is the work packages. It is important to note that only the main partner can create or remove a work package, but as with the other section, they can assign them to the other partners after creating them. So the mechanism is the same. Everything is assigned by default of the main partner, and the main partner can assign them to the other partners. As mentioned before, your project finances section of the form is partner specific, which means that each partner needs to complete this section for themselves individually. In the first section, your project costs, you will have to put your project costs per each work package. Note that this is linked to the work packages, so it will only become available after the main partner has marked the work package as complete. Also note, anytime a work package is edited and marked as complete, then the project cost will have to be marked as complete by all the partners again. Please pay attention to this and make sure that everything is actually marked as complete ahead of the submission deadline. This is a common mistake that participants applying a very last minute normally don't consider. Under your financial information section, you will have to put your financial information for up to 2 years. If you're a startup, you can provide estimates. In this section, it's very important that you check with your national funding body, the NFB, to see what is required from you regarding the financial information, and if you have to upload a financial annex, and what would be needed to be included in this financial annex in case it's needed. If you are not requesting Eurostar funding, namely that you are not going to access public funding, so it means that you will cover all the project costs at your expenses, you must upload a self-funding declaration with the application form under your funding. Regarding the funding decision, so either you're going to ask for public funding or not, there are two mandatory annexes that you must upload with your application form. The links to download the templates of both can be found on the application form, a section under the specific section for the annexes. Each organization in the consortium must upload a commitment signature form. So regardless the status, so it is either an SME or a large company, a research institute, or any other. But for each SME in your consortium, we expect them to upload an SME declaration confirming the SME status. Also, during the application process, at any time, you can run an automatic check of the eligibility of your application using the eligibility check that we have implemented in your application overview page. If you click this button to check the eligibility, then the platform will give you an overview of the 7 eligibility criteria that my colleague Michaela explained you before. And of course, to check if they have been fulfilled or not. It is important to note that even if one or more criteria have not been fulfilled, then the platform will still let you submit your application. The platform uses the data available, so that has been marked as complete at the time that you run this check. So please double check your eligibility by other means, by manual calculation, checking that you fulfill the eligibility criteria, for example, of the budget, of the countries, and don't rely only on the check function. As mentioned, all fields must be marked as complete for you to be able to submit the application, as this needs to be done by the main partner. The main partner marks all the section as complete, and then the main partner submits the application. How to do so, we'll see in the next slide. So once you have checked all the information is correct, and the main partner can submit, and they will also receive confirmation that the application is submitted. After the application is submitted, all the partners, the consortium will be able to access the application on their dashboard to view or to print the application. What you have to do is that you need to go to the dashboard in the application form, and from here you will be able to view the content of the proposal. Please be mindful that you cannot edit your application after you have submitted, and you can only edit the contact details. So this was all about the platform and the submission of the application. We now move on some frequently asked questions that we received. So the first one and the most common, I would say, is what happens if the application you submitted has a mistake? So as mentioned a few seconds ago, no changes can be performed on submitted application. So only the contact details can be edited, but nothing else. In case you are within the application deadline, so the application deadline has not passed yet, you can submit a new application. Please inform us by emailing us at applications@eurostars-eureka.eu with the number and the title of your application to let us remove the application. After this, you can submit a new application. Please note you will need to copy paste manually the content of the information from one application to the other one. So this also requires a bit of time. Be mindful of the application deadline. Other question we receive, can I submit a previous application that was not successful? It is allowed to resubmit an application that was not successful in a previous call. You need to start, as mentioned for the question before, a new application and then copy paste the content. How can we find project partners? About finding a partner, please refer to your national project coordinator that can help you with this with specific tool for matchmaking. Is there a list of funded projects and examples of successful projects? Yes, there are. They can be found on our website, and you can also access their stories as they are published on our blog. I think that from my side, that was all. I'll pass the presentation back to my colleague Michaela. We'll finish up by answering some of the frequently asked questions that, in general, we have received in the chat. And then we open the floor for some of the questions we'll try to tackle. Thank you.
Thank you, Alain. Again, like Alain just said, if you have any questions about using the platform specifically or any questions about the presentation overall, please leave them in the chat and we'll either respond to you live now, or I will get to them at the end of the webinar, or maybe we will have some time to reply to them in the coming days. On this slide here, we've added our contact details. So again, it's applications@eurostars-eureka.eu. There's also here a link to the form where you can contact your NFBs, which is available on our website under the tab Contact Us. And we've also included here some links to the resources tab on our website where you can find all of the guidelines that we've mentioned. I didn't mention during the legal and financial check, but there are also guidelines on the legal and financial viability check. So if you would like more information about that, please take a look at our guidelines there. Lastly, I'll highlight again that there are 2 upcoming webinars that could be of interest to you. So the webinar on Monday, the 26th of January at 10 a.m. Brussels time, titled Applying to Eurostars, What to Consider When Writing a Proposal. This is intended to help applicants to write their proposal, which is guided from an expert's point of view. And then another webinar that could be of interest is from the IP SME Help Desk. This is a webinar on the introduction to intellectual property in Europe, which is on the 6th of February. The IP Help Desk is free of charge, and they're available via phone, email, web, or virtual meetings to discuss your situation. So that is everything that I have prepared for you today. Now we will start the Q&A session in around 5 minutes. And in the meantime, I'm just going to look through the chat and highlight some of the most frequently asked questions that we've seen today and give you an answer to those. So take the time now, if you have not already, to put your questions in the chat. And then we will return in 5 minutes. So at 11:55 Brussels time. I will see you. Thank you. Hello. So now I'm just going to take some time to answer some of the questions that we have seen popping up in the chat. There are a lot of questions, so if we don't get to yours, if it hasn't already been responded to and we don't answer it now, either send us another message or in the coming days we will try to respond to as many that we haven't gotten to as possible. So one of the things that we've gotten the most is, will this presentation be recorded? Where can I watch the recording or see the slides again? The presentation is recorded, and if you had registered on GoToWebinar for this webinar, you will automatically receive the recording in the hours following the end of this webinar. I have seen some questions about using AI to write a proposal. Currently, AI is allowed to be used when writing your proposal. I would put a caveat here in that please use your own discretion. Obviously, we know AI can not always, it can be a useful writing tool, but it can also cause some hallucinations and it can write in a circular manner. So make sure that you are, if you're using AI, that you can justify why you've used it and that you're using it in a way that's helping your evaluation and helping your application rather than harming it, because experts who have to read really, really long circular paragraphs on your application, that if you've used AI, they're not going to be probably as favorable towards you as if you have written a succinct and clear application. Then there were some questions about organizations that are not the SME, the leading SME. So, and then what the funding rates are for these organizations. There is no Eurostars funding rate specific for organizations like universities or large companies or anything like that. These vary from country to country, what the funding rate in that country is for different types of organizations. So again, if you are a partner of a consortium with a leading SME, but you are a large organization or a university, you need to contact your national funding body to find out what the funding rates and the options are for you. Then I saw some questions about countries that are Horizon Europe associated, but not necessarily a Eurostars country. So the default here is that the leading SME needs to be from a Eurostars country, and the second SME needs to be from a Eurostars country, and one of these needs to be Horizon Europe associated. But the criteria that comes first is being from a Eurostars country. So just because a country is Horizon Europe associated doesn't mean that it's eligible for public funding. It first needs to be a Eurostars country. So take that into account. If you are from a Horizon Europe associated country, but it is not a Eurostars country, then you are not eligible for public funding. However, you can join a project, but this would be on a fully self-funded basis. Then I saw some questions about the specific evaluation criteria. You can find the evaluation criteria on our website in our resources folder. You can find exactly what the experts are evaluating for each section, so that you can answer to the best of your ability what they're looking for if you would like to look at that. Again, there was some questions about program-wide rules on budgets. Again, there is no Eurostars rules on specific budgets for specific partners or specific activities. However, countries do have individual country-by-country rules on types of organization, types of activities that are allowed to be funded. And it is very important, therefore, that you contact your national funding body to find out what activities can be funded in your country, and also what organizations and how much these organizations are allowed to get funding in that country. I questions about the technology readiness level. So Eurostars doesn't have strict rules regarding the TRL of a project, and it's not binding for your eligibility, but Eurostars does fund close to market research, and we hope that organizations are able to rapidly start commercialization, and as I mentioned in the case of biotech, biomedical and medical products, that they start clinical trials after the project's completion. So Normally, Eurostars projects start around TRL 4 and they end around TRL 6 or 7. And applicants need to be able to describe exactly what the outcomes of the project are and then define the degree of innovation that it will bring. And then another question that I saw was on linked organizations. We have in our eligibility guidelines a clear definition of linked organizations, so I would recommend that you look at that. Sorry, my camera has been disconnected. So please check our resources tab and the eligibility guidelines if your small to medium enterprise is owned or has shares or something like that. In the case that it could be linked with another organization, whether you would still be considered an SME according to the SME definition. Let me have another look. Subcontracting, I saw some questions on subcontracting. Subcontracting between partners is not allowed. So if you intend, or if one of the partners intends to subcontract a part of their activities, they need to be able to justify why they're subcontracting and like how much that subcontracting is going to cost, especially if it is a large portion of the grant that they're asking for. And the subcontractor does not necessarily need to be from a Eurostars country, but again, I'll stress that subcontracting needs to be justified clearly in the application. Let me see. I see some questions about the composition of the consortium. In general, obviously, there needs to be a leading SME as the main partner of the consortium. And then we have seen consortiums, again, I'll stress usually around 2 to 4 are the most successful size consortiums, 2 to 4 different partners. After that, maybe it gets a bit complicated. We see success in all different partner types of partnerships. So SMEs, multiple SMEs, or SMEs with a large company, or SMEs with a university. It depends on the project and the expertise that each partner is bringing in. One of the important parts of the application is to talk about the complementariness of the different partners and why the consortium needs each other and why they benefit by being a consortium and doing the project together. I saw some questions about the Eurostars success rate as well. In general, our success rate is around 20%, but this can be higher or lower depending on how many applications we receive. So in a larger call, the success rate obviously is lower because only the top 200 applications go towards being recommended for funding, possibly by the IEP who established the ranking list. So with that in mind, the more applications that there are, the lower the success rate because the funding sort of stays the same. Okay, I think that's all the answers that I can give you right now. Again, we will go back through the questions and try and answer as many of these as possible in the coming days. Yeah, if you didn't get your question responded to right now, please wait a few days and we'll try and get back to you. If you do not receive a response from us within a week, then please email us at applications@eurostars-eureka.eu and we are happy to answer any questions, especially specific questions about your situation. I'm not going to do those on the webinar because they're not so applicable for everyone. I'll highlight once again the deadline for submission is the 19th of March, 2026 at 2 p.m. Brussels time. Again, I'll remind you that this webinar is recorded, so shortly after we finish, you'll be sent a link to the recording that you can rewatch. And yes, remember that we are here and your national project coordinators are here for any help and any questions that you may have when preparing your application. With that, I thank you for your attention and we wish you the best of luck with your application. Thank you.
주최